Today we're in Unit 8 on Lesson 14, and we are specifically focusing only on the homework side today, and we're going to be working with quadrilaterals and shape identification. In today's lesson, it's a 2-day lesson, and the reason that I had broken up over 2 days is there's a lot of vocabulary for you, and I really do want you to get familiar with these vocabulary terms. Most of you know a lot of it already, but I think that it's important for you to really kind of focus on remembering these things and not having to look them up. So I've included them here in the lesson. You can take a quick snapshot of these definitions with your phone or your laptop and refer back and forth to it if you want as we move through the lesson. But we're going to be discussing the definitions here. And a quadrilateral is a closed shape with 4 sides. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides. Rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. A square is a rectangle with 4 congruent sides and a rhombus with 4 right angles. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. And a rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. And I wrote down there that congruent just means identical in form, so that you have all of the information as we start to work through this. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at different shapes, and we're going to see which of these definitions apply to that particular shape. So as we move through this lesson, you're going to be using these definitions as we go. And we have 4 problems that we're going to talk about. We'll do 3 of them together, and then I'm going to ask that you do 1 on your own, and then we're going to do some sketching, and we'll do a couple of the sketches together, and I'm going to ask that you do 2 of those sketches on your own and then submit those to me as homework. So what you're turning in today is going to be 3 problems on the homework side, and the rest of the homework side we'll be doing together as a class. As we work through the homework side here, we're going to start with number 1, and what I want you to do is look at the problem, and what we're doing is on numbers 1 through 4 is you're circling all the names underneath that shape that describe the shape. And so what I want you to do is I want you to refer back to these definitions that I have right here in the corner so you can look at them, refer to them as you go, and decide about that shape. And I'd like you to go through each definition and decide whether or not it is a parallelogram or a quadrilateral, a trapezoid, a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square. And we'll do number 1 here together and talk about it as we go. So when we start out, we're going to look at the word quadrilateral here. It says is a closed shape with 4 sides. Well, when we look at number 1, we can see that it is a closed shape. There's no openings, and it has 4 sides. So we can say yes, it is a quadrilateral. Then we're going to go to the next one here that's listed, and it says trapezoid, and we look at our definition for trapezoid. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral. Well, yeah, it's a quadrilateral, so it meets that with exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. And we can see that, yes, this does have 1 pair of parallel sides, because if we look here, this side and this side are parallel. And so it does meet the requirement of a trapezoid. So it's also a trapezoid. Now, we can go to the next one that says parallelogram. Parallelogram is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides. Well, we have 1 pair of parallel sides here, and if we look at the other sides, this one and this one, we can see that they are not parallel sides. So it is not a parallelogram, so you would not circle parallelogram. Your next one that's listed is rhombus. A rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. Well, we know that when we see congruent sides, we see these little lines here. If you look down at like number 2, and you can see the little lines on the sides that tell you that the sides are congruent, we can see that none of the sides in this shape or in this quadrilateral are congruent. So it is not a rhombus. The next one is a rectangle, and it says a rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 sides. Well, we already know it's not a parallelogram, so we know that that's not going to work, so it's not a rectangle. And the last one is a square, and a square is a rectangle with 4 congruent sides and a rhombus with 4 right angles, but we know that it's not a rectangle or a rhombus, so it is not a square. So the only 2 that qualify in number 1 or fit the shape are quadrilateral and trapezoid. When we move down to number 2, I want to identify a couple of things with you here. When we have a shape that has the square in the corner, that's a right angle mark, and what that tells you is that everywhere you see that square, it's a right angle. So you can see that this shape here, this quadrilateral, has 4 right angles. The other thing I wanted to identify to you are these tick marks, and you can see you have tick mark, 1 tick mark here and 1 tick mark here, and what that tells you is that sides with the same amount of tick marks are congruent. So what it's telling you is that this side and this side are congruent, and if you look at our definition there, that means identical in form. So that side and that side are congruent. You can also see that the other sides here have 2 tick marks, and that means that they are congruent with each other. So those 2 sides are congruent to each other. So we're going to do number 2 together, and we're going to go through the definitions just like we did on number 1. And we're going to look at all the available options, then we're going to check with the definition and see if it fits the shape. So number 2, the first one available is quadrilateral. A quadrilateral is a closed shape with 4 sides. Well, if I look at number 2, yes, it is a closed shape with 4 sides. So I'm going to circle quadrilateral. The second option there is trapezoid, and a trapezoid is a quadrilateral, so we have that one that we do meet, with exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. So does it have exactly 1 pair of parallel sides? Well, it doesn't, because we know that this side is parallel to this side, but we also know that this side is parallel to this side, so it's 2 pairs of parallel sides. So it does not meet the requirements of a trapezoid. So we're going to move down to parallelogram, and a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides. Well, we just went through that, and yes, this shape does have 2 pairs of parallel sides, so it is a parallelogram. The next option is a rhombus, and our definition says a rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. And we can look at this shape here and we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 congruent sides. So it meets the requirements of a rhombus. The next one says a rectangle. A rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. Well, we can look here and we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 right angles. So it meets the requirements of a rectangle. And then we're going to look at square, and a square is a rectangle with 4 congruent sides and a rhombus with 4 right angles. So it is a rectangle and a rhombus, and we can say yes, it meets the requirements of the square. So what I want you to do for numbers 3 and 4 today are go through those 2, do them on your own, as this is going to be part of what you're turning into me today, are numbers 3 and 4 here, and I want you to go through the definitions just as we did there. You can go ahead and pause the video now, work through those and refer back to the definitions here, and we will move on to the rest of the activity in a minute. For numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8, the directions say sketch a shape that fits the description if possible. So the if possible piece, remember, means that there is the possibility that you may not be able to create the shape. So number 5 says a trapezoid with 2 right angles, and you can see here that I created a slide with number 5, and then I wrote the definition of trapezoid so that you don't have to go back. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly 1 pair of parallel sides, and then I created a slide for number 6 with a rhombus and the definition of a rhombus included for you. Number 7, a parallelogram with the definition of a parallelogram below, and number 8, a rectangle with the definition of a rectangle below, and you'll have those to view as you go. And we're going to work on number 6 together, and we're going to work our number 5 together and number 7 together, and you're going to do 6 and 8 on your own as the pieces that you will turn in. So number 5 says a trapezoid with 2 right angles, and I know that a trapezoid is a quadrilateral, meaning I have to have 4 sides. So I need my 4 sides, but I need to have exactly 1 pair of parallel sides too. And so what that means to me is I need right angles so that I have parallel sides. And what that means for me is that this side here, this top side, I'm going to change the color for you. This top side and this bottom side are going to be parallel. And it also means that this side here cannot be parallel with the other one because it only has 1 pair of parallel sides. So I'm going to need to extend the length of one of the sides so that I don't have 2 sets of parallel sides. And I do that. and connect my sides. So a trapezoid is a quadrilateral. So is it a closed shape with 4 sides? Yes. And it has exactly 1 pair of parallel sides, and that would be here. Now, there are definitely different shapes that you can draw, but this one meets the requirements for a trapezoid with 2 right angles. You can look at number 6, pause it here, and work it out on either your worksheet if you've printed them off, or on your own piece of paper, and you can pause here and do number 6 on your own, and then when you're ready you can click play again. Number 7 we're going to do together, and it says a parallelogram with a right angle that is not a rectangle. And so a parallelogram, if we look at the definition right here, it says it's a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides. Well, a parallelogram with a right angle that is not a rectangle isn't something that we would be able to draw because we can't meet those parameters, because a quadrilateral has 4 sides, okay, but it says a quadrilateral has 2 pairs of parallel sides, and for it to have a parallelogram to have 2 pairs of parallel sides would mean that it would have more than 1 right angle, and it says that it is not a rectangle, so that we cannot do that. So this one is not possible. You're going to go ahead and move on to number 8, and you can pause the video here, and number 8 is the last one for you to do on your own. And so when you submit your work today, remember that you have numbers 3, 4, 6, and 8 to turn in for the homework side, and on Thursday we will work together through the remembering side. And I really do want you to please spend some time working through these definitions and trying to understand and remember as much about them as you can. It's going to make your math next year a lot easier if you understand the definitions for quadrilaterals. Take care, and I hope you are all doing well. Have a wonderful day.